Hi, friends. My name is Suzanne McAllister, and I'm with the Paw Project and Vegan Spirituality Group of Philadelphia and Conversations with a Friendly Vegan with my colleague and collaborator, Anne Piotrowski. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Thanks for making time today. And the reason we decided to do this is that I had something that is, I would say, a pretty simple experience, um, but meaningful. I'll leave it at that. So recently, I got an email from a longtime friend of 25, 30 years, and we were just going back and forth about a couple of things, and she commented that she found that she was very disturbed when she would see advertisements for shelters. And actually, Anne and I were laughing, trying to figure out. We knew exactly what song was probably playing. We couldn't remember, but now we know it's Sarah McLachlan, "In the Arms of an Angel." That is so sad. And they show these pictures of dogs in shelters and cats. I don't know if that's what she was watching, but I suspect it was. And she said, "I have to switch the channel. I can't watch it." And I thought, I wonder if that, you know, did something inside for her. And so I then sent an email back, and we were talking about a bunch of things. And I said, "Oh, I'm interested. Did that experience lead you to change any of your habits?" And I knew where I was headed with that question. And actually, I think she did too, because she said, "No, I am trying to." So she knew that I meant diet, even though I don't think I said dietary habits. I think I just said habits, trying not to lead the witness. And she responded with, "I am trying to cut down on sweets and eat more vegetables, but I'm still on my cholesterol meds." And I thought, okay. And then I'm trying to remember what I said. Oh, I think I said something about sometimes habits are really hard to break and it takes time. Oh, I know what I said. I said that it was reading a book and learning about factory farming that had really turned the tide for me, and took me about 6 months after reading that. It was Fast Food Nation that I went completely vegan. But basically, kind of encouraging, but also being empathetic. Like, I know it's hard to change habits. I just think this is an example that I suspect all of us encounter fairly frequently. I wish more frequently. Like I said, I've known this woman for a long time, and it's the first time she's even made mention of her having a reaction like that, watching an animal either not necessarily suffer, but not being in great circumstances. So I mentioned it to Anne, and we thought, this is a perfect conversation for us to have through conversations with the Friendly Vegan and also the Paw Project and vegan spirituality. So, Anne, what were your thoughts when I shared this story with you?
Well, I just wrote down a few notes just even as you were describing it to me again, because even though I knew the basics of it, a few things you just said stood out to me. That is, one, you said that you described it as like a simple encounter, right? But that's really kind of a lot of what we're helping people with is just these kind of everyday simple encounters. It's not always a big dramatic thing, or when you're at a protest, or you're really just existing in the world as a vegan person, in settings that are where there are a lot of people who are not vegan or don't necessarily see things the way we see them. um and uh and that what stood out to me also is that, like, that's what we do, right? She said something, and then you perceived that opening, that
Yeah,
there's just a little opening in her that allowed you to kind of like connect on
yeah,
that topic. And that's so great. I mean, that's just so, that's what it's all about, really,
yeah,
because we're not really trying to uh, push or shame or force people, but we've become so keen to those little openings,
yes,
and we've become brave to step into them.
yes,
Right, and that's
yes.
exactly what you were like just describing, so I like get chills, like, I love
It,
that.
well, thank you. I just want to say that, and I really appreciate your response because it is a big deal.
Yeah,
Because I've had so many conversations with this woman over the years, and there has not been an opening like this in all those years. And even though right now, as far as I know, there's been no change other than she said she's eating more vegetables, but we don't know when something we say, like I mentioned the factory farming, and that changed my what I was doing in my habits. So it did feel simple and monumental at the same time.
absolutely, that's the paradox of it all. And I think when you talked about that, how you came to it and how, like, when you shared that with her, I think that's really like where we've talked so much about how we're really trying to advocate through connection, not division. And so
Uh-huh.
you found a connection point there, that Venn diagram. You found the overlap in habit change. It's hard to change habits. This
Yeah.
is what kind of prompted me to do it. And you found that space where you could connect with her on something. Now, is she gonna like now all of a sudden see the light, the rays of sun, and she's gonna like see it? I don't know. I mean, but that's not yours to control. That's just, yours to, you had a connection with a human being on this important topic. And I think that is a big deal.
I love you just said something, and you know how this happens where we'll be talking about something, and one of us says something, and it's like, so boom,
Yeah,
it said connection instead of division.
yeah,
And, that's how we're trying to get the message out, not by going in and trying to divide, but to,
right.
okay, there's a connection here, there's an opening, let me see if I can go through it.
Yes.
And
And
it
getting
rub,
really super skilled at recognizing those openings, seeing them, being sensitive to them, and then kind of tentatively stepping into them, stepping into that little opening. And I mean, that's exactly what happened. And it's exactly, I think, what we've tried to model and talk to people about in all of our Zoom meetings when people have come to us with questions about how to deal with certain situations.
and I have, I'm thinking as you're saying that, both of us have training
Yeah,
as mental health professionals, and I think, we're really, in a great position to be noticing these things, because I'm sure it happened to you. I know it happened to me when I would be in the consulting room with somebody, and you are always waiting for that opening where you might be able to say something that could be hard for the person to hear.
yeah.
And you're always wanting to do it in a way that is not going to shut the person down, even if there's a little wincing, like, ooh, is
Yeah,
that true? And it's like, Um, so I think both of us have spent years cultivating that skill. And so I think we're hyper alert when
yes.
there is, an opportunity like that. And so I feel very grateful that I have that skill. And I'm just wondering, as we're talking about this, if it feels a little less, uh, apparent maybe to somebody who doesn't have the training we do.
I'm sure it does, but I also absolutely know that you don't have to like become a therapist to do these things or to get good at these skills, to gain these skills, because basically what you're describing is like healthy relationship and communication skills. And when the situation happens like what you just described, where we know we're pushing on a sensitive spot with a client, so we're trying to get them to move into something that might be a little touchy. Well, how do we do it? We do it tentatively and with empathy, right? So we're just tentative because you know what? And if we sense that they're not ready for that, they don't want to go there, hey, they're in charge, and we pull back. And then we try another, it comes back around and we do it another day. And that's what a healthy, respectful, caring, empathic relationship is. And I think that, yes, while it might be, but that's why we do what we do, is because, yeah, it is less obvious to people who haven't been trained in it for as many and been involved in it for as many years, but it's still kind of just some teachable skills, I think, that can be practiced and mastered.
I think the other part of it, and again, the fact that when I told you about this exchange that I had, you immediately grasped how important it was. And I knew how important I felt it was. Like, wow, there's this little crack. I can try to say something that might get her to think a little bit, and was excited by it. And again, wondering, and I guess, like you said, it just is being part of a good relationship where you're tuned in to the other person and noticing that there's something a little different. Somebody's saying something that you haven't heard them say before, and you explore that with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and I think that we can transfer those skills also. And I think as we do more of these videos, different topics will come up, because what if it's somebody that you're not in a good relationship with? How do you practice healthy relationship skills and the other person isn't necessarily, reciprocating that? When do you keep engaging and when do you walk away? So there's all sorts of stuff. Or what about when it's a stranger, like when we do our tables?
yeah.
We're not really in a relationship, but we're still practicing these healthy relationship.
I do think it is very different, and I think maybe this is a topic for another recording, but when it is somebody who is a stranger, because there's really very little downside to taking a risk, whereas with somebody who is a very good friend, there can be quite a bit of risk. If you say something that could be perceived as offensive or shaming, or and obviously the way I responded to her, there was no shame involved. But I would be treading more carefully with a good friend.
Right. And I think though that I guess that's a really important point. And I think so, imagine if you said something which from your perspective was just a reasonable, if not loving thing to say, and then the response came back to you that somebody was offended or she was offended, right? That even that if you stick with it and you're open and you're empathic, and you have a lot of self a compassion as well, you can go back from that. Like
Absolutely.
you can just, you can work through it and get to a place where it's like, and that's where the skills keep coming in handy, right? Because you keep
I
keep
guess
working
my point was that I realized that I feel pretty relaxed when we're doing a table and somebody comes up,
right.
Anything is possible. Whereas with somebody where I have a relationship and I kind of know how things go, then I'm probably just a little bit more tentative.
Well, there's history, right? There's history,
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
bad, ugly, all of
yeah,
it, it's
yeah,
all there. So
yeah.
that
Well,
makes sense.
I love that we took the time to talk about this, and it seems like really what we're talking about is things that can seem simple but are monumental, and things that, at least in this instance, really excited me. And
Yeah.
I was so glad that I get to share it with somebody like you, who I know is going to grasp what I'm talking about, where
Right,
I think a lot of other people would say, what's the big deal?
right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
Yeah,
as you know, I'm so
yeah,
grateful for our collaboration in all the different areas that we work. And
yeah.
thank you for making time today.
Thank you. This is great. And I hope to do many more of these.
Me too. All right. Bye bye.